As far as ego perspective here, the cop is obviously full of ego, and I don't believe that if you don't sign the ticket that it really matters. The police officer there said he's entitled to arrest him if he doesn't sign the ticket. I'm not even sure that's true. Again, the common sense side of this, and this is something that John talks about sometimes as well, is that you escalate the situation by not signing the ticket. Now, someone like myself who speaks very clear English and understands the circumstances, I'm just going to sign the ticket. I'm not going to refuse to sign the ticket. It's not an admission of guilt. It's a promise to appear in court. And it doesn't matter whether you sign it or not. However, it escalates the situation. So I'm just going to sign it. All right, guys, we're back again with the PEM podcast, and that is pragmatic ego management or pragmatic ego mitigation. And, trying to paint a face on the ego, which it has many, many, many faces, is a difficult one. And trying to understand its role in really destroying your personal peace, your personal state of internal harmony, and also its effects on our society and our global psyche and just our world in general is kind of what the goal is here with this channel. And it's a tall order. It's not easy to do. The videos help to show the egoic interactions that people have, and we try to point out the characteristics within the ego. But a lot of it is difficult because it's hard to even speak about completely directly. There's an analogy I like to use of if you know the saran wrap or cellophane wrap, very thin plastic wrap that you might put over some, food leftovers and things like that. And many of you have had the experience when it touches itself, it's almost impossible to pull it apart. Family Guy, the show, the cartoon Family Guy has a really funny skit about this, where Peter's trying to put something in the fridge and he's struggling with the saran wrap. There is that aspect with the ego, meaning it's very difficult to differentiate between the personality of someone, the authentic state of being and interacting within this world, and that aspect of ourselves versus the egoic part of ourselves and the ego's influence over us and the way that interactions unfold and the way that our internal mental state affects us and is a product of that influence. And trying to decipher what is the authentic human, the pure, clean presence of the human, and then what is the egoic shade and influence that's in there. And separating that is like the cellophane touching itself. So that's why I use that analogy. That's the goal, is to try to get to a level of awareness where we can see what is ego and what isn't. And so ego is constantly justifying itself. And those of us who are caught in the crosshairs of egoic interaction will, especially at a peak trigger moment, will not be willing to admit it. The arguing and justifications for the behavior will escalate. And it's a feeding mechanism that then further reinforces the behavior, either through the model of neural pathway reinforcement in the brain, or if you're metaphysically inclined, a spiritual entity that is the ego that is constantly seeking energy, food, to sustain itself. So anyway, that's kind of a further description of what we're trying to do here. And lately, last episode, we were talking about tyrants and seeing different types of interactions with tyrants, some on different sides of the authority equation even. People in all kind of areas of life can attempt to wield their power in one way or another, and that power wielding is fueled by their egoic drivers. So so we're going to get into some videos and see what we see in these ones, and I will do my best to try and paint this picture as clearly as I can. But it is not easy, to be honest with you. It's very hard it's tricky to talk about these things. Okay, let's see what we got.
The way that your vehicle was located, I'll have to write you a ticket for improper U-turn. Whenever you complete a U-turn,
I didn't U-turn.
hold on. Whenever you complete a U-turn, you're supposed to be as far to that corner as possible. Okay?
Yes, they have another car in front of her. And why, I cannot parking behind her.
I need you to sign with your finger. It's not an admission of guilt. You're just signing saying you'll take care of the citation for a ticket. You're promising saying that you'll take care of it at a later date, whether that be in court or if you take care of it outside of court.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So I'm writing and issuing you a citation for improper
Me?
U-turn. Yes, sir.
Citation, she hitting me and I got
Okay.
a citation.
We don't argue on the side of the road. We argue in court. Yes, that's how it works. Because if not, if you don't sign this, you go to jail. Okay?
Yeah,
I don't want to
go
take you to jail.
I'm ready to go to
You ready to go to jail?
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Good for him.
You're not supposed to leave any space at all. You're not supposed to leave any space at all.
You see that two car?
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do.
I am the
The
top
way
car.
where
I'm the
your
top
vehicle
car.
was located, your
Top
vehicle
car.
was not like that.
Sit down.
No.
You sit down. Don't fail.
See, sir, no. Cho anh em lần. Anh đánh nó, anh lại. Ai đi để em lần.
Yeah, I'm gonna call an ambulance.
Oh, man. So, I actually was aware of this situation before, and again, there are people far more qualified to talk about these things than I am. I believe John Bryant did cover this one. I think that's where I was aware of it from on the Civil Rights Attorney channel on YouTube. The Graham factors are the 3 factors for use of force. The use of force there is extreme. I don't know what injuries he sustained. Do we have any idea what injuries he sustained from that? I'm sure he was injured. I'm sure he was injured from that. It's an absurd use of force on a man who appears to be in his 80s, very frail. The cop is not in any danger whatsoever. Even if the man had an attitude, he did kind of raise his hand. I believe there's another angle of this video where we see that I think he touched the cop's chest with his finger. That doesn't really matter to me. The cop's going to try to claim that's an assault and that he feared for his safety, is absolutely insane. I'm hoping we live in a society where we ascertain things from a level of common sense understanding that man is not, the old man is not a threat to that officer without a weapon, and there was clearly no weapon involved, so there's no threat to him. The crime involved is a traffic infraction, so again with the Graham factors, extremely small. I don't believe actually that traffic infractions, I remember John Bryant saying something about this. I don't think traffic infractions entitle an officer to use of force because they are such low-level crimes. The language barrier is clear, so this man doesn't seem to fully understand what he's signing or why. And I think he obviously has a different perspective on who's at fault for there's an accident that's happened here. There's a U-turn made. That's all, I don't really know the full, circumstance for what created the situation took place. But none of it warrants what took place there, and I hope that cop faces, loss of qualified immunity. I would hope that in those situations that a cop like that would be jailed. I honestly think we need to see police go to jail for that. To assault an elderly, confused man the way that he did there, is that the values of our society? Are these the people that are protecting and serving? Is that what we're, what we're having here? As far as ego perspective here, the cop is obviously full of ego, and I don't believe that if you don't sign the ticket, that it really matters. The police officer there said he's entitled to arrest him if he doesn't sign the ticket. I'm not even sure that's true. Again, the common sense side of this, and this is something that John talks about sometimes as well, is that you escalate the situation by not signing the ticket. Now, someone like myself who speaks very clear English and understands the circumstances, I'm just going to sign the ticket. I'm not going to refuse to sign the ticket. It's not an admission of guilt. It's a promise to appear in court. And it doesn't matter whether you sign it or not. However, it escalates the situation. So I'm just going to sign it. Okay? It's not going to do any good to not sign it. But I understand all those things. We're dealing with clearly a man of some sort of Asian descent who does not fully understand what he's being told, probably thinks that it's a full admission of guilt that he disagrees with, and feels that he's being wronged, and it's not serious enough to harm. And like I said, we've seen people in situations like that. It appears his head was on the ground. I don't know how hard his head hit the ground. We've seen situations where people have been permanently paralyzed, serious neck injuries from being taken to the ground like this. And in one or two notable cases where the injuries were so severe that the person spent like a year or two in absolute agony and then died in some horrific, slow death scenario in a hospital or in some sort of, in facility care type situation. Awful stuff. Absolutely absurd that the use of force was meted out against that individual. Clearly an egomaniac of an officer who should not be a police officer. It's just so unreasonable. It's unbelievable. And again, the old man, he got riled up. And that's where you see the ego. You see the trigger responses in people. You see the old man kind of get riled up. He put his finger up there from the other angle video, which I'm aware of. He does poke the officer's chest. Not advisable. But again, for you to be a cop that's trained in arrest and control tactics, clearly much larger in an era and a phase of your life where you're exponentially stronger than this individual, tasked with protecting and serving the vulnerable population, that all of those factors combined to then resulting in you using that type of force against that gentleman is it's disgusting, and our society should reflect our disdain for that type of behavior. And again, I'm not suggesting punishment is the answer from the perspective of punitive, just purely punitive, revengeful action, but that person should not be a police officer. That person should face consequence and should have to review their actions over and over and over again until they finally start to see how unreasonable and absurd it is. Unfortunately, police protect each other, so I believe that man may have been charged with something. I forget what the follow-up is, but then the cops, they always try to cover up this crap and make it seem like it's the perpetrator's fault in this case. So that culture is what needs to change. We can't allow that culture to continue to exist. We need to make it. Make it a vacuum. Zero oxygen to breathe for those folks, to where we don't put up with it at all. We can't allow it because it's eroding everything at our social fabric. And that's why, last episode we saw a man talk about how much he hates the police. Well, here's an example of why there are people out there, and many people out there, who absolutely cannot stand the police and see them all as just absolute pieces of shit. And this is why. And so we can't allow that, because then that completely erodes the social fabric. And it puts us in a very dangerous situation. Look at our political situation of extreme polarity, and it's dangerous stuff that can lead to widespread violence and a collapsing of our society. These type of interactions need to change. It's really, really something we can't allow. Anyway, that's what I see there.
Hi, partner. You want to step out of the vehicle for me?
Okay.
We'll have a chat.
What did I do?
We'll have a chat. Like I said, step out of the vehicle.
Well, you have to tell me what I did, officer.
You will have that opportunity. I need you to turn off the vehicle and step out of the vehicle.
What did I do?
Like I said, step out and we'll have that chat.
Officer, I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel safe. I don't know what's wrong.
Okay.
Can I just sit here until the superintendent gets here?
I've got some other folks coming so you can step out of the vehicle. Or I can help you out. Or we can help you out when they get here.
I don't want that, officer.
Okay. I know, and I'm trying to be cool with you.
No, but I don't just feel comfortable.
Why don't you feel comfortable?
Because I don't know what's going on.
Like I said, you got to step out of the vehicle so we can safely have this conversation.
I don't want to.
You don't want
I
to?
can sit here and wait until superintendent comes.
Okay, here. Nope.
I'm glad he had his door locked. Well, it's kind of interesting. One of the things I guess we're going to come down to a budget issue, but one of the things that I am seeing, for instance, in my own, chosen profession now of dealing with mental health and then psychedelic treatment, psychedelic facilitators and retreats and things like that, is I'm starting to wonder, under certain circumstances, certain situations, especially, let's say, with women in a situation of going for a facilitated experience, let's say a bufo ceremonial, which is a smokable DMT that comes from the Sonoran toad, or an ayahuasca ceremony or something like that. We've seen this problem with assaults happening on women, especially sexual assaults, things like that. I think, well, then it shouldn't just be one person there. Like, there should be oversight. Like, there should be probably at least another woman there, if not maybe even 3 people. Like, again, budget. I know that cost is always a question here, but we're talking about people's safety. And my point of bringing up that analogous circumstance, which might seem a little far-fetched, is that, at least far removed from this interaction here, is that we're dealing with people in positions of power with, vulnerable people. It's clearly a black guy there and a white cop, and I don't blame that guy for being uncomfortable and concerned what this cop's going to do to him. From what I see there, it's, again, there could be far more information that we're missing from that interaction. But from what I see there, it seems reasonable to say, hey, I am scared of what you're going to do here, officer. I am concerned that you're going to do something that could jeopardize my safety and health. And there doesn't appear to be any other officers there. Not that that's foolproof. I believe the man's name is Tyree Nichols that they beat to death. Right? There was a lot of officers involved in that, so it's not foolproof. But, I don't know if there's some way of systemizing this to make sure there's some sort of oversight. We've got the badge cams, thankfully. I think we should have stricter rules around the badge cams. Having multiple people on the scene for something like this, I don't know why he couldn't just say to him, the cop couldn't just say to him, all right, sit tight. I get that you're uncomfortable. We got a lot more people coming so that that nothing nefarious is going to happen. We're going to have plenty of other eyeballs here and badge cams and everything. Again, budgetary issues, I guess, but with the climate that we're in and with what we've seen with law enforcement, I think you have to adjust and it just is the way it is. I don't necessarily at all blame that gentleman for being overtly, cautious or concerned for his safety. And of course, we could twist it the other way. It could be that guy was, had perpetrated some crime in the past, was trying to feel the cop out and see if there was a warrant out for him, potentially had weapons in the car or contraband that he was concerned of, and so he's, maybe behaving in a certain way that he's trying to feel the situation out for that, and then he leaves the scene. Obviously, now it becomes a police chase scenario. So you can look at it from both those perspectives, but I got to say we've created an environment of a deep lack of trust for the police. I don't trust them, and I'm not a black kid. If I was a black kid, I think it'd be far worse. We've definitely seen the results with that. That's why we just can't allow, like the video prior to this one, we cannot allow police to behave poorly. We just have to hold them to that higher standard. We say we hold them to a higher standard. If you ask me, I think we hold them to a lower standard. That's what I think. When you look at the qualified immunity and all the extras we extend to police officers, I wouldn't call that holding them to a higher standard, if you ask me. So I think we really need to hold them to a higher standard so that we reestablish trust and have a community and an entire society that actually does trust people that are in these positions of authority. So I think that's where the real issue is there.
Reggie, hey, don't resist, Reggie, don't resist. Dude, I'm trying to hook now. Oh, hey, no, what the fuck?
Oh, that's nice.
Bro, don't touch him like that, bro.
Yeah, kids are ballsy. When you see a cop acting like that, it's good. I'm glad they stood up for him. But yeah, kind of seemed like he was treating him a bit with the old slave mentality there. It looked like to me that did not look good. Gosh, good thing he had some friends there looking out for him. Somebody filming. I guess we don't know who's got the angle on that film in there, but yeah, these cops are too much, man. Authority, man. It's just such a difficult problem to solve when it comes to authority, and you have to have, oversight, and I think you need a wide cross-section of population of oversight people involved. It's this whole trying to get authority to behave fairly and in the best interest of the public, and not just operating from some ego kind of power trip model. It's a difficult problem to solve, and you got to have a lot of people involved. And I think you got several people there clearly stepping in. They even went up and grabbed his arm a little bit, like, "Hey, that's not cool." But you see the power of having a group like that, and he probably didn't have backup at that point, so that's why they're able to do that and not get pile drive to the ground and who knows what themselves. So yeah, that's why I think this new era of technological advancement with video and streaming and being able to see these tyrants in action, hopefully cumulatively. I think cumulatively is the answer, is what's going to take place as we keep seeing this and have people who are truly dedicated to this cause. We might see some balancing of kind of that power structure and those tyrants out there. And it's interesting. I wonder what effect it has on a global scale when we start talking about something like North Korea or, even, Iran or China or, Russia, or different areas where we know there's totalitarianism happening. And of course, they have tight restriction on streaming and information and news and being able to access that material. So that's how they do it, right? And that's the concern I have around censorship anyway. I don't ever think we should support censorship, because it really is what fights against this kind of stuff. And then there's people who try to make the arguments, well, some things should be censored and others shouldn't. I think it's a very slippery slope. Obviously, there's lines of decency that we all understand that we don't allow, but we've definitely stepped way into this side of, censorship and freedom of speech restriction with some of the stuff that I think came with the woke movement and some of the stuff that we saw happen through the COVID era, and just this progression with the social media and streaming channels that is a concerning trend. And hopefully we start to see a rollback of that and a pushback from people. But we'll see. These are very powerful groups out there, corporations and very wealthy, powerful people involved in shaping those narratives. But we're still able to have a pretty free discourse and show material like that, which I think is really important. I always like knowing where this stuff happened. Like, what was the city where that took place? What was the officer's name? Let's expose these people and keep that ball rolling. Sharing these videos with people so that the word spreads. And again, we got no context there, but I think you can see the way he's treating the kid, and the kid's not really fighting back or doing anything. That it's way out of line. I have a feeling that the crime involved was probably minuscule. Did not appear to be any resistance on his part. And didn't pose a threat to the officer or the general public. So there's no justification for the way he was behaving with that kid there. Anyway, yeah, context always helps. So that's what I see there.
Scared, as he should be, because a real man faced me man to man, not without the badge and gun. You see, he put his hands on me and physically touched me because he's working inside of the color of law. Now, if he puts me in handcuffs after I showed him that I don't have a weapon, that's an illegal detainment, which means I could sue his ass personally.
Jose Maria de Castro, a law professor, was just arriving home from work when dumb cops pulled him over. Unbeknownst to them, they stopped the wrong person. As they don't know the law, they get into an epic confrontation with the legal scholar who shuts them down and made them quit.
Hey!
Do you have a driver's license, please? Insurance and registration.
I sure do.
Okay.
Is there a reason why you pulled me over?
Yes, there is. You ran a red light when you were at University and Rural, and then you made an improper turn right here where you cut the car off. That was in lane number L2. Do you have a driver's license, please?
I do, but it's in here. You're not going to be scared if I reach it, are you?
Do you have any weapons?
Well, I don't answer any questions, but you can clearly see inside of my vehicle, I have camera equipment. I'm a TV producer.
Okay. Do you have a driver's license, please?
I do.
Could you grab it for me, please?
But I did a U-turn where the road was closed. I just want you to notice that.
All right. Could you give me your driver's license, please?
I can, but I got to reach in here, and I don't want you to be scared.
Just give me your driver's license.
This is the Mullen Commission. I teach constitutional law.
Okay.
And you guys are just tyrants. Like, I'm not usually this close to someone who's just so dangerous that carries a gun around pulling people over, demanding things. It's like, it's absolutely ridiculous the way you guys behave, and you wonder why people don't like you.
Yeah.
I mean, look how you behave. You didn't see the road was closed back there?
I'm just asking for your
But you
identification.
didn't see the road was closed. It was plain as day the road was closed. You didn't see that?
I need your driver's license, your insurance, registration, please.
Listen, you can be short all you want, but I don't exactly drive around with my identification showing for people to see it. I mean, I can't believe you even pulled me over, to be honest. You could clearly see that road was closed.
The officer accused him of reckless driving, which he proved the officer wrong, stating that he has a camera to prove his innocence. Subsequently, the cop decides to give him a ticket, but when he exits his car to get the ticket, things escalated between him.
Just a couple comments there. This idea that being educated and quick-witted and sharp with your tongue will shut down tyranny, I think is a dangerous one. I think you need to be very careful on how you proceed in those situations, because this is a conversation I've had with different people, including we've talked even in the past about these people who believe in sovereign citizenship and things like that. And the argument we finally arrived at, where I arrived at really with all this is, hey, even if you're absolutely 100% correct about the law, if someone sticks a gun in your face, what are you going to do? Right? The power dynamic. At the sovereign citizen argument level, which the civil rights attorney John Bryant has kind of shut down with a lot of actual case law, precedent-setting law, some people disagree and say historically the law says, X, Y, and Z, which I'm not an expert on. My answer to that is, well, even if you're correct, clearly these judges in these different circuit courts are not upholding that, and at the end of the day, they're fining and jailing people, and what are you going to do about that? They've got the power, they've got the guns, they've got the force. It comes down to very simple animal force. It's very chimpanzee-like. They're going to beat you into submission, trust me. So the concern that I have about this is like, hey, maybe you do know the law and you articulate it clearly, and then maybe the officer doesn't respect or respond to that very well. That's when you need to be very careful and go, okay, fine. And I would say, don't resist that. Just, document it. Hopefully you've got rolling cameras that they're unable to stop. That's why I like that. Paul Reyes's, it's the Long Island Audit. He came out with that. That app. What's it called now? Attorney Shield, I think it's called, where you hit the button on your phone, the phone locks, but continues to record and they can't stop it. I love that idea. That's a beautiful idea. But the point is to not get on your high horse too much, because maybe you do know and then think that you're going to resist some cop, because I think that can get you into violent problems. You just have to go, hey, okay, we'll deal with this in court. I'm just, and that's also, I struggle with that sometimes in some of these cases where we see blatant use of force situations in which possibly even your health and safety are at risk at the behest of some officer. That gets really gray area for me. My teacher and martial arts mentor, who's I consider him a master martial artist, has said that in certain circumstances he will not allow police officers to put hands on him, and that he would defend himself. Boy, that sounds dangerous. But he said, his point is, he's not going to allow them to have the ability to hurt him or seriously damage his well-being, especially based off an illegal action or illegal detainment or something like this. I think that's a long discussion, huge long discussion, I think, about that could even get into a spiritual and philosophical debate about approaching these circumstances, because I've experienced some interesting things with authority, with violent folks, and with the use of psychedelics even that shifted my perception on some of this stuff, and is why we're on a channel that's called Pragmatic Ego Management, because ego is really what's at play here. I think it's complicated. All I'm saying is, even if you really know your law, be careful about how aggressive you are in communicating that and dealing with that. Sometimes the best thing is just to go fine, while you document, and then bring it up later in a court of law, in a situation where you have a structure in place instead of some tyrant with a gun who's maybe unhinged, and there's plenty of those, as we've seen. So just to protect your own safety and win the battle at the best level, at a far enough trajectory down into the extremes of this debate and topic, is a situation in which there's armed conflict, in which that's the idea of being allowed the Second Amendment to fight back against tyranny. And I think that's a very delicate conversation, one we have to be really, really careful with. These type of interactions here, I don't think are enough. There are other ones that I've been following. There's one in Idaho where officers entered a man's home based off of an arrest warrant for someone that was a guest, so an unrelated party that was not living there, and they broke the Fourth Amendment big time and went in this man's home and threatened him and did all kinds of stuff. That starts to edge on me, where I start going, hey, I don't know. I mean, you're looking for the best outcome, and you need to watch out for the egoic kind of responses. But there is a point in which I start going, hey, I might shoot at you. I might do something really drawing that line at the level of fighting tyrannical government. I don't know. I think you have to really be careful about how you approach that line. So, using an extreme example like the Jews in Nazi Germany, that obviously I think would be a clear time to say, well, we're going to draw the line and shoot and fire and fight fire with fire at that point, because it's, that you've reached that extreme. I don't know where that extreme starts. I don't know. I think that's a long discussion. So my point here, though, is things like these. I think you got to be careful with these. They kind of hype you up about, oh, this guy shut these cops down, and look how, how sharp he is, and able to just kind of, make these tyrants look like fools. Tyrants don't care. Just so you understand, the people that care, at least in the back of their minds, are thinking, oh, I might get in trouble. I got to be careful. There's some people who don't think that way, and they'll fuck you up. So I'm just painting a picture of a dynamic environment to think about these different things. So, all right. Anyway, let's go on to the next one.
You didn't see the road was closed?
I saw, but I also saw that you were stopped at a red light, and you turned left at a red light, and then I also saw right here, you turned left from lane number L1 and straight to lane number 2 and cut off the other vehicle that was in the
I didn't cut off any vehicles, officer. Don't make things up.
All right,
I got a camera in here, so don't say things that aren't true. I didn't cut off anybody. Let's see if it's. Let me just take a look and see. Oh, it's on the other side. I can get it. I don't need you. I don't need your help. You can. Okay. I'm not a criminal, so get the fuck off of me, brother. I'm gonna have you wait in your car. No, I'm gonna grab my registration like you asked me to do.
I'm gonna have you wait in your car.
You're not giving me a lawful order. I teach constitutional law. Be very careful what you do.
Okay,
Be very careful. You're not for officer safety. This is under Terry versus Ohio. I'm Pennsylvania versus Mims right now. I'm outside of my car. The 1978 holding. Are you sure?
Yes.
I'm allowed to go over and get my registration as he asked me to do. Stop demanding. Look what he's doing. He's demanding me around. Yes. This is not a lawful order. No, because I said don't tell me what. You cannot demand that I do unlawful orders. I teach constitutional law. Be very careful, officer. Okay. You don't think that it'll affect you, but by about the second year, when I get into your jacket and you get a complaint on your jacket, and then you get demoted from overtime, and then that affects your pension.
Get your hand out of my face.
My hand's not in your face. I'm having a discussion like a regular. Now you're touching me. Get your fucking hands off me.
Into me. I was
Look, who's walking up and doing what to who?
I'm not moving at all.
I'm not under arrest, and since I'm clearly going to identify I don't have any weapons, now he can't Terry stop me. Do you see the difference? If he didn't know I didn't have weapons, then he could handcuff me. But because now if he does handcuff me, he's working outside of the color of law, and that's U.S. Code 18, Section 214. too. You can't let tyrants like this push you around. He literally was physically touching me, when if he didn't have that badge and gun, he would never do that to me, ever, because he knows better. He knows what would happen, don't you? Without that badge and gun, we both know what would happen. You're the beta male. I'm the alpha male, and you know that. And you're scared, and you know you are. That's why you have your hand on your gun, and you're scared. Look, he's scared, as he should be, because a real man faced me man to man, not without the badge and gun, you see? He put his hands on me and physically touched me because he's working inside of the color of law. Now, if he puts me in handcuffs after I showed him that I don't have a weapon, that's an illegal detainment, which means I could sue his ass personally. He no longer has qualified immunity. But see, he's a Neanderthal. He doesn't have any other skill sets. So you guys can see I'm showing the coward. There's the 1977 holdings of Pennsylvania versus Mims. That's an extension of Terry versus Ohio. Now see, what the coward here is trying to do is he wants to Terry stop me and put his hands on me. But what he doesn't understand is that Pennsylvania versus Mims has a very explicit statute. The officer has to believe that I'm armed and dangerous before he can jerk me out of my car or detain me with handcuffs. So show me what my camera gear in my backpack here. What would make you assume that I'm armed and dangerous? And why are you up on me, right? It's like, this is the way American police treat American citizens. It's completely uncalled for. And they pulled me over because there was a road down there that was
Citation, you have to take it by the...
What's my citation for?
January, red light violation, improper turn. The back was
You couldn't see the road was closed back there? Oh, go to hell, dude. You guys are both authoritarian. Oh, can I walk over here now? Are you still scared, copper? Are you still scared? Are you still scared? Are you still scared? Yeah, coward.
The cop was...
Well, yeah, I worked there. He has the camera going. I don't know at that point, was he doing something live there, or what's holding that kind of situation there? We've seen in some places, in the wrong place, trust me, they would have thrown his ass to the ground and maybe stomped him and who knows what else, right? So I think he's in a place where luckily that's not the case. I wonder what was the outcome there. He used knowledge of the law, right? He used a lot of things. We don't know enough about what took place there to really be certain. I'm careful when it comes to the way he's delivering his message because there's clearly an egoic kind of overtone to what he's saying there. He keeps calling them cowards, he's calling them names, he's kind of puffing his chest out because he's standing on the law. He's doing a lot of the stuff that I don't recommend and I try to avoid myself, and it's very satisfying for not only him but for the viewers, right? It leads to a very entertaining video. We get to see this kind of David versus Goliath, success story, and everybody cheers, especially the people who really don't like authority and law enforcement for the reasons he's pointing out. But we've seen a lot worse interactions than this one. If you ask me, he was aggressive to begin with. We don't know the circumstances of the traffic, infractions that he's being accused of. He's saying there was a closed road, and I don't know the law there, right? So we got a road closure. It's a closed road. This is just going off of the statements that I'm picking up from the video because we don't see any of it. He's making a U-turn at a red light and apparently makes the U-turn without waiting for the light to change, is what it sounded like. And then I don't know if that's illegal or not. I think it might be. He's not following the traffic signal, but I don't. Again, this is all off of, without seeing it, without really knowing what's going on. Then he's being accused of cutting people off. He claims that he has that on video, so none of that's true. It sounds to me like there may have been reasonable reason for the traffic stop. So he's being stopped for violating traffic law. That could be up for debate. He comes off very aggressive right from the gate, right? You can kind of see his attitude. I don't know if we're missing some of the video, but if you ask me, he's rather aggressive right away in a way that I don't know is necessary. So who's escalating what? I think he might be escalating. At that point, though, we do supposedly we're supposed to hold our people in authority to a quote unquote higher standard. So they need to put up with that, period. It's just the way it is. If you decide to be a cop, then you need to put up with people, exercising their First Amendment right, say whatever the hell they please, and you may not like it. So it doesn't mean that it's a great idea. But it is the standard that we're, holding, especially based off the Constitution. So he can say whatever he wants. I just don't know that the attorney gentleman there was actually that reasonable himself. I don't know enough about the traffic law. We don't know if he cut anyone off or not. He claims he has it on video. The one thing that seems that he doesn't address is that it sounds like he made a U-turn on a red light based off of a road being closed, and I think that's questionable because I don't know. So just taking all those facts in and going, hey, well, what really happened here? What I see is a guy who's delivering quote-unquote education about the law to these quote-unquote tyrants, but he's doing it in a way that has a lot of ego and a lot of, sticking his chest out there. And I don't particularly like that because I don't think that it has the strongest impact. I think that what are the potential outcomes here? That these cops just hate civil rights attorneys after this, right? They just don't like anytime they hear the word, the category of attorney, civil rights attorney, they're like, oh, fuck those guys, because now they get the same, you see what I mean? Now they get the same kind of perspective in their mind about a certain subgroup of the population. The way someone like myself might think that way about cops. I can't stand cops. It's the same for the same reason, because many of them have behaved a certain way with me, and I've seen them behave a certain way with other folks that I see the tyrants, but that can go two ways. And now you get a bunch of civil rights attorneys who, instead of treating people with respect and saying, hey, this is the law, I'm just going to instruct you about the law, and this is what I can and can't do. Instead, you got to call them cowards, and he did poke his finger in his face a little bit. Honestly, I don't know what the law is on how close you can, get to someone's face with your finger before that's, entering into some area of dealing with someone's personal space. I'm not even sure. I don't know what the law is when it comes to cops and that. So again, I can't weigh in on any of that. But he is doing that. He is, and it's just, I don't think it's the most effective way. It would be better, in my opinion, if he was able to deliver the message with a bit of humor and de-escalation and still continue to deliver the message of constitutional law and respecting citizens' rights, and doing that in a way that was disarming instead of a way that was domineering, and then making people feel small and making people feel whoever they are, regardless of who they are. And I have to fight that within myself. There's people who I don't like, who it's easy to then have this attitude of, what, I'm going to teach this motherfucker a lesson. But I don't think, as I've gotten older and I've started to consider this stuff more, I don't think it's teaching that person the lesson we want to teach. And so that's my only perspective on this whole thing. The constitutional law stuff, I'm 100% behind. 100% behind educating or eliminating, firing, terminating people from employment that are tyrants. 100% behind that. 100% exposing them. 100% exposing them to the community at large. All of those things. But the interactions where we make people feel small and shame them and call them cowards and call them a bunch of names and do that, I just don't think it's having the desired effect, because I think you're adding a twinge of resentment. And one of the biggest obstacles, I think, to humans acquiring further awareness, especially self-awareness, is resentment towards some source. So anytime you're sprinkling in the opportunity for resentment into something, I think you're countering your own message. I think that's what I'm really boiling this all down to, and so I don't think it's the best way to do it. Yeah, it makes for good entertainment. It makes for great, satisfying content where we can say, yeah, we taught those pigs, those tyrant pigs a lesson. It feels great. I don't think it goes a long way to changing the world in a really great way, though. And so that's what this channel is more about, is trying to achieve another level of conscious awareness where we start to see real positive change. And I don't think the way that attorney was delivering that message does that. All right, that's it for this one, guys. Yeah, we're all about, it's called pragmatic for a reason, right? The channel is called Pragmatic Ego Management. Practicality. What's going to be effective? What are we really going to get a real result? But the question, of course, is what is the result? If the result is I want great entertainment with a feeling of satisfaction, especially in a social justice kind of arena, then the types of content that we saw here, especially with the attorney, is great, right? The result isn't maybe looking to improve the world. The result is to entertain. And I think that's what we need to be careful with, depending on what we're doing here. If we're doing entertainment, great. I think it's unfortunate that as a species, what we find entertaining seems to not be great for us, which is interesting, right? Like, if you look at movies and media and things like that, obviously violence is a big seller. Violence is something we seem to celebrate within action movies, things like this, all these action stars and movies over the past many decades up to the present moment, movies like John Wick and things like that, very satisfying and fun to watch. How much does that, part of ourselves that gets entertained from that also reflect in the way that we then interact in a social setting? I don't know. People have been debating that for a long time when it comes to content, especially violent content, violent video games, these types of things. But then extending violence to something else, it becomes almost like a verbal type of aggressive verbal violence. I don't know if that's even really a real thing, but that's kind of what I see with that attorney, being verbally aggressive and berating of someone. Again, satisfying content, but as far as changing the world to a better place, I think it's not practical for that whatsoever. And my goal with this channel isn't necessarily entertainment, guys, and I know that may hold me up a bit with my viewership. People aren't going to, right? People want to watch stuff that's entertaining. And, we try to make it entertaining as much as possible with these type of videos, which I think are entertaining. But the message that I speak about might not be that entertaining because it doesn't feed the ego. What I'm talking about, it's not egoically, formatted. It's actually counter to that. And so it's not always that satisfying, some of the things I might be saying. And some people, it might really upset them, actually, especially people who've been victims in certain circumstances, things like this. But I'm really looking at a big picture of what we need to do as a species in order to overcome the challenges I think we're faced with nowadays I think we could end up seeing the end of at least our civilization, and possibly the real challenge of facing the extinction of our species if we weren't really careful. So, that's what the channel is about, is trying to change people's minds. And so that's what I mean by looking at practical solutions to situations that would lead to the best outcomes for all involved. In the last video, not just the attorney walking away feeling great about himself and showing everybody what a badass he is, with his words and his constitutional law and his attitude. But then when looking at the best outcome for all involved, the police driving away, and actually instead of thinking what a piece of shit, civil rights attorney that guy is, thinking, oh, you know what, kind of nice guy. Okay, I'll have to think about some of this stuff. Maybe I should think about constitutional law a little more, or at least planting a seed somewhere, right? Which I'm not sure that did at all. They tucked their tail. Okay, good, they left. But yeah, so tyranny, tyranny and tyrants are, all over the place. They're not just in law enforcement. They're not just in politics. They're all over the place, and it's a opportunity for us to grow emotionally, mentally, spiritually by how we deal with them. But if we deal with them from an egoic standpoint and puff our chest out and even go to a poor me, it doesn't even have to be that way. It could be another thing where you go into this pity me, poor me, victimhood thing. That's another face of the ego. It's the same. It's all part of the same, legion of masks that aren't really who you truly are. Who your true authentic potential is. And so that's what the channel is about. And yeah, those are a couple of good videos we see. If you ask me, I think we saw a cop tyrant, and then we also saw an attorney tyrant, if you ask me in those situations there. So neither one of them do I align with. But good episode, and we'll see you in the next one, guys. Hey guys, thanks for watching. For long form, you can find us on YouTube and Rumble. For short highlight clips from the podcast, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok. Please visit psychedelis.com. You can find all sorts of assets and resources in the psychedelic business space, including retreat centers, clinics, ketamine clinics, individual integration coaches, guides, shamans, you name it. We've also got products, chocolate bars, gummies, spores, blue lotus flower, all kinds of things. Go on and check it out. There's even more than that on there. If you would like more content, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to ask a specific question or submit videos for me to react to directly, please email us at thepempod@gmail.com. All right, guys.